welcome to the latest episode of the Risk Settlements Podcast, Alternative Litigation Strategies. I'm your host, Kevin Skrzysowski. I am a director with the litigation consulting firm, Risk Settlements. And on this program, I interview legal leaders from all over the country on a variety of topics that normally impact the litigation industry. Usually at the beginning of the program, I tee it up by saying something like, we're going to be discussing some latest trends and developments in litigation and settlement strategies and class action cases. But today we are going to deviate and we are going to focus on legal wellness. And I am pleased and honored to be joined by not just a class action attorney, but the founder of the legal wellness movement and Your Lovable Lawyer, Danny Karon. Danny, good morning.
Good morning. It's a thrill to be with you. Thanks for having me.
It is a real pleasure to have you on. You have had a very amazing career and a very successful career. You've been a plaintiff's lawyer, focusing primarily, among other things, on class action work for decades. You've been a professor and a lecturer at multiple law schools. You were the former chair of the ABA Institute on Class Actions. You've been a columnist on Law 360. But when you and I met, you mentioned how your career was moving into a different direction, focusing on mental health and legal wellness, and how you founded Your Lovable Lawyer. But take us through, first of all, just your career and why you chose law and how your career has evolved into the legal wellness movement.
Well, I kind of thank or blame my dad, I think, for the law track. He's a lawyer. He started at Robbins Davis and Lyons way back in the day, Robbins Kaplan now, about 50 years ago. And then he went out on his own and he was doing all plaintiff's products work while he was there and when he left and practiced on his own. So I knew from that growing up. And I didn't really connect the dots at the time, but fast forwarding maybe 25, 30 years, I realized that if you want to make money, you can do pretty much anything. But if you want to make a difference, you become a lawyer. So I wanted to do something more purposeful and meaningful with my time and effort and brain power than just to move dollars around and make money. I wanted to affect change, make a difference, help people, all those things and themes. So that's what kind of drove my thinking, largely unbeknownst to me way back in the day. But it all kind of channeled or evolved from having watched my dad do it. So I majored in speech communication and rhetorical theory undergrad, which means law school. There's not much more you can do with that. Unless you want to be a rhetorician and you're a public speaker, and I don't even know what those two things are.
Sure.
So I go to law school and I come out of school and I wanted to do that kind of victims type of work, which, by the way, fast forward again, having done plaintiff's work for as long as I had, I learned that victims aren't always on the left side of the V. They're often getting sued, getting hunted down, getting chased by bad lawyers pursuing bad claims and bad causes and bad lawsuits. So victimization doesn't discriminate. Right. So you can take these themes I'm going to describe and pretty much apply them to both sides of the calculus because I'm really even-handed that way. And we'll talk more about that theme as we go. But I wanted to do plaintiff's work, at least to start. And I didn't like the blood and guts aspect of injury work. I wanted to do something more sanitized, something that wouldn't make me throw up. So I got into business litigation and I started at a large firm in Chicago doing that type of work, which the work didn't lose its luster. The firm did, because the big firm thing wasn't for me. I was immediately banished to parts unknown to look at documents, because that was in the days and age of box law. And I was out there in warehouses and standing water and exposed wiring, doing mouse crap everywhere. And It was terrible. So I lasted longer there than I would have liked. But when we wound up moving to Cleveland, where both of us are now, because we had one of two kids and now they're both out of the house. But my wife is from here and we wanted to get out of the city because it was expensive and there were no friends with kids and there was no family and all those sorts of things and considerations. Sure. And I said, I'm from Minnesota, Minneapolis or Cleveland made sense. She said, we're going to Cleveland. I said, we are. And she said, yes. And we did. And that was about the extent of the discussion, if you'd even call it that. So here we came. Yeah. And I kept doing it. And as I grew in my practice, and took on different challenges and opportunities, like you mentioned, chairing the ABA's National Institute on Class Actions, which I just came off of running it 13 years straight.
Right.
And what I said to folks at the last institute was that, listen, I started this thing when my son was 5 years old. He's a freshman in college now. My wife would be the first to tell you nobody needs to hear that much out of me. So I'm going to pay it forward and let some people who've got the chops and gumption and initiative and all that stuff come up, just like I was recognized and tapped for something better and more useful and
passing the reins
purposeful.
down.
I wanted to pay it forward like it was paid to me, and let somebody else kind of get up there and do their thing. And we've got 2 new leaders, and it's going to be great. I gave it to 2 folks for 2 reasons. One, it was too much work for one person, which it didn't start out as. It started out as a pretty modest undertaking, but I blew it up into something huge, but just internalized it. So I became pretty good at it. And second, I always played it right down the middle, like I suggested a second ago. I think victimization and the need for help occurs on both sides of the V. Mm-hmm. I didn't want any sort of partisanship. I do mostly plaintiff's work with some defense work, and you would never know it from anything I ever set up there. And I wanted it to be right down the middle. And I didn't think anybody existed out there who I could trust to be as honest and intellectually forthright as I was in all my time running the program. So I asked a plaintiff's lawyer and a defense lawyer to do it together. And I think it's going to be a great combination. Perfect. So that's what it's evolved into. That said, I'm still teaching a program at this next institute because you can't keep me away. I'm just too much of a junkie for it. So I was doing all that teaching. I'm getting to your question. It's my wind up.
Sure.
So I realized that all the lessons and all the things I would say on stage, whether it's at the institute or lecturing a law school class, they're totally ephemeral. They just disappear into the ether by the time you're done with them, and nobody has much memory, if any, of what you said. All they remember from like the institute was where it was and what you fed them. And I wanted to do something more permanent. So that was one observation. The next observation was that, if you take a look, there's really what I consider to be a societal bias against access to justice, where people who need it the most tend to get it the least. And what does that mean for folks? It means that people who don't have an aptitude or an awareness for their legal health or legal issues or what's happening to them don't know they have issues. If they do, they don't know how to resolve them. If they know how to resolve them, don't know who can help implement that resolution, much less how to pay for somebody. They're completely in the dark. So that when 9 out of 10 people get screwed over by their credit card company, their cable company, their cell phone company, it happens all the time.
Sure.
If they even know it happened, they just take it figuring, oh, what can I do? Well, I didn't think that was fair. Mm-hmm. Observation 2. Observation 3 was that I took a look at the daytime TV and internet landscape, and I observed a couple of things. One, there's all this, call it physical health and mental wellness content out there, right, like Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil talking about how to be safe and sound in your mind and body.
Right.
There's also a lot of financial wellness content out there. Jim Cramer, Susie Orman, how to open an IRA for yourself, a 529 for your kid, that sort of thing. But where it comes to that third essential bucket, legal wellness, which flows into the first 2 buckets, there's nothing out there except for these trumped up courtroom shows that are more exploitative than they are helpful or preventative. They show up after things have fallen apart. They train the camera on the families or the people who are trying to make sense of what went wrong, and then they exploit it and have some fun with it, and they walk out of the courtroom. I wanted to slide the dial back and be preventative and helpful in the same manner as getting physical keeps you from getting sick, and talk about how to avoid these common problems and missteps and miscues that people don't even know are out there to sting them before they happen, and bring that sort of legal wellness to people in a free, fun, and accessible way. That's what generated the brand.
That is fascinating. That is so interesting. It is so honorable. And I couldn't agree with you more. I started my career as a criminal defense attorney, and so working with a lot of disadvantaged people. And it's amazing. Once you go to school, how much you know, you forget how much other people don't know. Mm-hmm. But also, and I know as an attorney, we're all asked by friends, family, colleagues, neighbors over the years about their certainly, can you help me with this? Can you answer this question for me? You may be a class action attorney. We do business litigation consulting, but people are having a divorce or they're pulled over or something. And that intersection between physical health and mental health and legal wellness completely crosses over, because when somebody has a legal problem, they're mentally consumed.
Oh, yeah.
It can ruin their life. They almost can't even get out of bed. They feel physically ill.
And your finances.
Their finances.
Mm-hmm.
They feel like their life could be over. And so you are filling really an amazing void. So now you promote your brand and you created this identity as Your Lovable Lawyer. And you founded the YouTube channel, Your Lovable Lawyer. Tell us how you selected that brand, what is behind Your Lovable Lawyer, and a bit about your YouTube channel.
Sure. I thought the name, I liked the alliteration behind it. I also started playing with the idea of the lovable lawyer, but I swapped out the article the for the possessive your. I wanted to be more accessible. I wanted people to think that we were part of a collaboration and conversation. It's not an advice giving dynamic because that's unethical. It's rather raising awareness, creating wellness and aptitude, giving information so they can do with that information what they think is most suitable and appropriate. I created this logo with a local advertising agency, Rosenberg Advertising, plug them because they're amazing. And we put together a logo and a look that was inviting and fun. And it was kind of it's a throwback logo. I wanted it to kind of give off this vibe of inclusiveness and innocence and accessibility, which is so almost antithetical to what people consider when they think about lawyers, because they're not approachable or anything like that. So it's got this kind of Brady Bunch, Gilligan's Island-esque vibe to it. And it's a cartoon, that if you take a look at the logo, if you take a look at www.yourlovablelawyer.com, you can't miss the logo.
Yep.
And that's the vibe and feel I wanted to promote. Now, in terms of content, once I get people's attention, what did I think and what do I think is most useful, purposeful, relevant, and meaningful to people? And what kind of info do I think they need to know and will best benefit them? Well, the content tends to fall into three buckets. If I have my math right, let's see if I got my math right. The first is, it's kind of 2.5 buckets. The half bucket is COVID, because that's kind of a spot, kind of topical, hopefully not to be seen again. And
still going on, unfortunately.
Right, yeah.
Right.
But a lot of things channel through COVID. So COVID kind of is its own bucket, so we'll call it 3 after all. And I took a look at COVID, and it spawned all these new legal issues that folks hadn't considered, that the law actually still hasn't had a chance to catch up with, because things are still wending their way through the legal process. What do I mean? Let's say, for instance, back when COVID was, we were in the throes of COVID, you're driving up to soccer practice with your kid in the back seat, and the coach comes up to the car, asks you to crack the window, and you do, and he slips in a piece of paper and a pen and says, you got to sign this before Johnny can come out and practice with the team. And you're like, what is this? What am I signing? It's a COVID waiver. What's a COVID waiver? I don't know what it says, what its limitations are, its contours, its consequences, its defenses. All I know is that I'm late for work and he's crabbing in the back. I got to get him the heck out of the car and get on.
So you sign it.
And you sign it.
You don't know.
And you don't know. And that's a debilitating, helpless kind of position. If that is, you even take on that way of thinking. A lot of people don't even do that. But if you do, you're even more scared. That was one example. PPE. Let's say you're working at a meat processing plant or a fast food restaurant, and you're feeling like things are a little too close for comfort. I don't have enough PPE here, spacing, hand sanitizer, protocols. Right. What duties and obligations does my employer have to keep me safe and well? I don't know. And is he or she keeping his or her end up? That's an issue. How about higher education cases? That's a big one. They shut all the campuses down. It's at-home learning, on-screen learning. Is my child getting his or her money's worth for what I'm paying or for what the kid's paying? Now, you could argue maybe yes and then some. Maybe some kids like being at home. It's easier, simpler, more accessible. They feel safer. They're grateful. Fine. What then about the fees you pay, technology fees for, say, the computer lab, whatever a computer lab looks like in 2022.
Sure.
That's locked up. The health center fee you pay when the health center's closed. The athletic fee you pay for the teams that aren't playing. Is that money you ought to get back objectively? Higher education cases. A lot of stuff going on out there. People, if they know to ask, don't know where to go or what the answers or issues are involving those areas and more. And that's just COVID. So how about evergreen issues, the ones that are and will be around forever? What to do if I'm in an auto accident? Forced arbitration clauses and consumer contracts in your cell phone, cable bill, or cable contract, credit card agreement that strip you of your Seventh Amendment right to a jury trial when they inevitably screw you over and subject you to private arbitration, which means they pick the decision maker who's not always, 97% of the time, the data show, going to rule for the company. Why? Because they pay their bill. Nobody knows from their lack of justice or the ability to pursue a real legal claim in court. And that derives from the 7th Amendment, which is, there are only 26 amendments. And that's like top 10, big one.
Sure.
That's gone. Traffic court. How do you handle traffic court? What do you do? Guilty, not guilty. What do I plead? Nolo what is
contendere.
It?
That's
Nolo contendere. Right. That's, I won't tell you what you should do. I'll only tell you what it means. And people deserve to know. Mm-hmm. Bucket 2. Bucket 3 is the fun one. More kind of pop cultural issues. I mean, there's so many of them. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Elon Musk getting sued for his whole Twitter thing. The Dobbs decision that just went through. That's kind of legal / pop cultural. It's all in the news. You can't get away from it.
Yeah.
And what do these mean in terms of common understanding so people can make sense of them? And what lessons can we derive from what happened in them? So for instance, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard. It wasn't a domestic abuse case. It was at bottom a cross defamation cases. What do you need to prove to the jury to win a defamation case? And what can we learn from the mistakes they made to avoid being the next defendant in a defamation case, especially considering how apt we are to put stuff online with tweets and posts and whatever. People need to know what sense to make of what other people screwed up. That's the content that fuels the site.
And that's fascinating. And it answers questions that so many people have. It answered a lot of questions that I have. And I've been a lawyer for 23 years. And I've gone back and I've reviewed your videos about what do I do if I get pulled over? What happens if I'm in a credit card contract along with my teenagers and I'd like to get out of it and I'm stuck? Very valuable information and insights for lay people and actually lawyers themselves. So I just want to be clear. So are you looking to retain clients? Are you looking to do pro bono work? Or is your mission really educating the entire market, society in general, as to legal wellness? And as a piggyback to that, do people ever call you looking to retain you based upon just some of the information and the guidance you're providing on your website? This
is really my side hustle.
Okay.
I've got the law firm. I've got more business than I can keep up with. When we part ways this morning, I'm going to be full up doing stuff that I can't keep up with.
Okay.
And I don't need any more business. That's not to say I wouldn't want to get more good cases. But listen, if you're looking, if you ask me, do I want an influx of business from this? Like if I were billboard advertising or on the side of a bus, the answer is no. It is just to raise awareness and to create that brand identity so people know that they have a resource and someone who can help them understand, and not understand legal issues, but understand the existence of legal issues that they didn't otherwise know were there. So it's kind of like the iPod of wellness brands. You don't need it, but boy, once you get it, you're so glad you did. Your life is so much better from it, and you kind of do need it, actually. You're
the guy behind the scenes that people don't know they need until they listen to your videos. And they are informative as to what their rights are in so many situations. Mm-hmm. People probably encounter so many things in their daily lives that they don't even know that they have a legal right. They don't even know that they can have help in this particular area.
Yeah, the first part is to know you have a problem. And the second is to know to some degree or modest extent what you should or can do to navigate it. You also asked me about, what was this blended in? About, have I gotten any folks contacted?
Do they call you saying, I would like to retain you? I have a traffic ticket. Yeah. I have something negative on my credit report. Mm-hmm. I would like my son's tuition refunded because he didn't go to class. Have you received those calls?
They're all through the website. Nobody's calling anybody, right?
Okay.
But yes, I've gotten contacted by several people with issues related to the videos that I put out. And I'm careful not to provide advice because, again, mm-hmm. the minute you get into the advice realm is the minute you establish an attorney-client relationship, and that has consequences. So I'm careful not to do that. I instead offer some direction and some aptitude for what they can do, and suggest they go maybe
in the right direction,
or a law school clinic or something, if that is they're looking to elevate this to the next level. But I've not undertaken any representation, and I'm very careful to avoid engaging in any sort of attorney-client relationship, because it's not fair to them either. They shouldn't think they have me to rely on, because that's not what my role is, and I don't know the facts sufficient to do that good a job for them. So I don't want to do that for them. It's not fair to them.
Of course, completely understood. It's really helping people help themselves, mm-hmm. at least in step one.
Right.
And it's a great resource. So let's talk about your channel a little bit. So, and we've talked about the videos, but having watched many of them, so they are just short, informative, 2 minutes, 3 minutes that really tackles just a narrow legal issue, A to Z. You talked about the buckets that you've done. What are some of your top 3 episodes that you've done, or the ones that have received the most feedback? And for those that haven't looked at your channel yet, I mean, you have really creative backdrops. You bring costumes into it. You make it theatrical. To your point earlier, you really break that barrier between people who are afraid to speak with lawyers, and you make it fun and approachable and informative. So just your top 3 most creative programs that you did.
Well, my method has evolved. So I started out, and this leads into an answer. I started out doing videos kind of like this on my webcam in front of the computer, my laptop, and this in my office. That's where I am. And this isn't a backdrop. This is actually my office, or a green screen rather. And that's limiting because there's no movement. There's no gadgets. There's no kind of background. And I've evolved into a place and space where I've got a green screen at home, and I've got a green screen app, and it can put me anywhere in the world, because I was going out on location and taping stuff outside, which was a function of good weather and not a lot of people around, because people are getting in your shot. They're making noise, background noise, making fun, wind blowing over your tripod. I was taping a video. This was when the House had passed this forced arbitration ban as a concerned employment cases. It really, what spawned was the Gretchen Carlson issue, when she had her problems with Roger Ayers Roger Ayers in Fox News. And I taped it. I went to tape it in front of the Fox News headquarters in Cleveland, where there's a huge satellite dish. This is Fox 8 on it. Right. And it was on a public street. And I had my tripod all set up, and I started taping, and a security guard came lumbering out of the building yelling at me, "You got to move. This just, private property, and you've got to move your camera out of here." And I said, "I'm on public property. I'm off your property. I'm in a street, and I'm an American," and da-da-da. And he said, "I'm going to call the police if you don't get out of here." And I said, "Well, then I am out of here." Listen, I'm not that principled. I got the heck out of there. Yeah. So I don't have to deal with that anymore, because I'm green screening everything, and it's a lot more fun. So putting aside the shtick and the costumes, I do a lot of costumes because I take the subject matter really seriously, but not myself. I mean, I'm totally irreverent as it concerns me, but the topic is what has to be, seriously considered. So taking all this shtick away and just talking about answering your question for pure topic's sake and pure purpose, what resonated best with people in terms of the analytics that I review. Yeah. The forced arbitration video made a lot of headway because people didn't know and don't know from what rights are being taken from them as it concerns consumer contracts. They can't go to court when they have a problem, and they have to go to this arbitration individually, I might add, not as a class or a bunch of people, which means if you got a $50 claim, good luck finding a lawyer who wants to step in and help you out. There's nothing in it for him or her.
And that could be on your own. Any consumer. I mean, that could be your cell phone bill. Yep. That could be your cable contract. That could be a car lease that your teenager is stuck in.
Absolutely. It's a lot of phones.
Yep.
A lot of banks.
Mm-hmm. Right.
What else can I hold up? That's all that come to mind. But yeah, everyday stuff.
Right. Everyday stuff. Right.
And then, of course, when you have no real stakes, but you're, aggravated, but no lawyer to help you navigate the process, you don't do anything. And that means the company wins. Right. And wins and wins and wins times 5 million times they do this. And suddenly it's a profit center. And that's precisely why they lobbied to get the law, as I just described, where you can't go to court. So that was a good video, the forced arbitration video. I did one on Spirit Airlines. I did it at the airport. I did it across the way, but in front of the ticket counter for Spirit Airlines while people were still waiting.
Was there similar problems to your Fox 8? I can't imagine doing
No, I was fine there.
During COVID?
I was fine there. I had my mask on, and I did it in the airport. Nobody shooed me away.
Okay.
Thankfully, because it was a good video. And I talked all about not just what was happening to people, because everyone knew what was happening to them. That was obvious. It was on all the news. I mean, that's what they reported. Long lines, missed flights, no attention. But I talked about the consequences and the relief people deserved on account of what Spirit was doing to them, and how those rights derived from the Passenger Bill of Rights issued by the Department of Transportation, channeled through Spirit Airlines contract of carriage, which gives you certain rights. That's the contract. That's the contract between you and the airline. Nobody knows from a contract of carriage, but it's a thing. So I had the contract of carriage, and I highlighted the sections that created the rights you had to pursue against Spirit for what they did to you. If that is, you wanted to get your hotel back or your rental car back, or consequential damages, we call them, damages resulting from your having missed something like an event or a meeting or whatever. And you can make a claim for those. You might not win, but you can sure as heck make a claim. And I explained what I would do and what I've done when those sorts of things have happened to me, and how every single time, bar none, I've gotten back what I've asked.
Spirit it impacted so many people, and it is still impacting so many people today. I would advise people, go to your YouTube channel and watch that video.
Oh, thank you.
I just saw 500 cancellations happen today, and there might be just a devastating 4th of July travel weekend.
Brutal.
So I see that video getting a few views over the next couple of days. Yes.
Third one. This is a triad. This is the Johnny Depp ones. This was a lot of fun. So I'm putting the shtick back in.
That was a fun trial.
It was a fun trial to watch, unless you're in it, I guess. But I did 3 videos. The first I channeled through Captain Jack Sparrow, and I was dressed up as Captain Jack, and talked about what the claim was about. It was a defamation case. Each side needed to prove these 4 elements or things by what's called a preponderance of the evidence, meaning like if you had a scale, you don't have to tip the scales like this in terms of how convincing you are, like beyond a reasonable doubt, like in Law and Order. That's where we hear that all the time, but just a smidge, and then you win. And I said, let's, not be stupid and make the same mistakes they did, because Amber Heard didn't think she's going to get sued for what she said, because Johnny Depp only needs to prove that she meant it and satisfied all these elements of defamation by this much. Pretty high stakes for shooting your mouth off. If you ascribe it to having shot her mouth off, maybe she thought she wasn't, and obviously, but look what can happen. That's the point. Video 1. Video 2 was the verdict. And I channeled it through Edward Scissorhands, and I had the Edward Scissorhands costume. We talked all about what it meant and what the consequences of her having done that were, and what his lawyer having popped off in the Daily Mail in London were to her, which were little as compared to what Johnny Depp got. And then the third video, because listen, the fun has just begun. I mean, the trial only took 6 weeks. The appeal is going to take a couple of years, and that's what's going to happen next. I talked all about the appeal, and I channeled that through Willy Wonka. And I had a bunch of different candies, and the theme was candy. I talked about payday, and I was going to cost $100,000 for the appeal, and there's always a now and later in these cases, and there's a bounty, and some folks get 0, and these are all candies, which I learned.
Right.
And some are better than others. But I talked about the appeal through that muse. And they all kind of tied together into a beginning, middle, and end of the Johnny Depp trial, which is just how my videos run. They have discernible beginnings, middles, and ends. They have a fun attention grabber, which is what you need. Again, speech major, we learned how to craft speeches in college, so you need an attention grabber. And then we present the problem, talk about it, present solutions, and talk about how it applies to you. Everything has a story arc in 2.5 minutes. So it's useful to people.
Yep. And they're very, very helpful, very, very useful, fun, and very informative.
Thanks.
And helpful to watch. So what is your ultimate goal, or what's the end game for you? Mm-hmm. I noticed on your website, on the Your Lovable Lawyer website, you've been featured locally here in Cleveland on television several times. I mean, what is your ultimate goal? Is your ultimate goal to have a television program, to be the Susie Orman of legal wellness, or where would you like for this to go?
The answer is yes. I'd like to build toward that. I'd like to monetize it. I'd like to get enough subscribers and viewers that I can get some corporate sponsorship and direct some of the sponsorship to legal aid, because I think that's essential to people in every market. And that's really, that's the market in large part that the website is intended to serve, as people who don't know where to go and don't know how to find somebody. So legal aid seemed like a perfect place to put some money. If that is, I can get some sponsorship money together. Right. I'd like to see if I can get a segment on a show, maybe like a news show, like a CNN. If it pays, great, because there's no harm or shame in making money. Sure. And but that's not the first goal. Again, it goes back to making a difference. And then this is the vehicle for that. And then ultimately, yes, I think it would be really great fun and really worthwhile and useful and helpful to be the legal, say, Dr. Phil or Susie Orman, and get a show. I would love to do that. There's nothing on TV that fills this niche. There's no content out there that goes to this, and the number of issues to discuss and describe are absolutely limitless. I mean, the human body has a finite form, and there are only so many disease codes and DSM-R diagnoses, when you talk about emotional health. Maybe COVID spawned some more, but in large part, it's limited. Legal issues, they're absolutely endless. Look at COVID. I mean, COVID spawned a ton of new legal issues. We just went through 3 of them. They are endless. Look at the Dobbs case that overturned Roe v. Wade. Can the Supreme Court overrule itself? There's a lot of discussion about that. Did Justice Alito perjure himself because he said one thing in his confirmation hearings and another thing in his opinion? That's a discussion that channels through a legal lens. The legal issues are endless, and they are so provocative. I mean, there's a reason that the shows on TBS and TNT and the main 3 networks are either doctor shows, law shows, or cop shows. Right. That's where all the stakes are.
Right.
And I'm in one of those buckets, So I would like to see if I can't amp it up and get some more visibility and do more good with the brand.
I think that would be tremendous. I think there definitely is a void in the marketplace. There's a lot of blue ocean out there. And I think what you're doing is really magnanimous, and you're starting to fill that void. And I'm looking forward to watching the Your Lovable Lawyer brand grow and really fill that space more and more. So let me part by asking a question that I ask to all guests. It deviates a little bit just from legal wellness, but it's for the young folks out there who are young lawyers or who are considering a career in law. What advice would you give to a young person today who would like to start a career as an attorney?
Okay. For me, that's an easy one. It's all about, let me put it this way. Let's say you're interviewing with me for a job, and I'm going to switch it around. You're interviewing me for a job. I'm the associate prospect. Okay. And you can ask me but one question, the answer to which will largely drive whether you hire me. Mm-hmm. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
All right.
But what's your one question of me? And I'm going to give you a clue so we don't have too much dead air. It starts out with, how can you?
Okay.
How can I?
So I have some ideas. I'll answer your question first.
This is the professor in me, by the way.
I could say, sure. How can you make a difference? But I would ask, what makes you get out of bed in the morning?
Okay.
What is it that you want to do that you find fascinating enough and interesting enough that you feel like you could do this for 20 to 30 years? What is it that drives you, that makes you, that inspires you?
Okay. And to that, I would say respectfully, that's a great question for a podcast. It is. And it's provocative and useful and meaningful and important and essential, and everybody needs an answer to that. In the real world, if I'm an employer, I couldn't care less. I want to know, how can you make me
Well, that's the bottom.
Jaded, right? Yeah, you didn't see how it coming.
That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line, right?
Absolutely. So my point is, you as a young lawyer, how can I, as a young lawyer, make my employer money? Well, I'll tell you how I can't do it. Mm-hmm. I don't have business. I'm not part of a family that owns a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah.
So what can I do, at least in my stage in life, to get on that track?
Yeah.
And what I realized is that the best thing a young lawyer can do, someone starting out, to get business and to make their employer money and add value, because you make money, boy, you get put on cases, you get picked to do stuff. Clients call you directly. Maybe they step over the partner because they learn to like you, is you can be a good writer. You can be the best writer. You got to be the best writer in the room. And it's accessible and it's attainable and it's absolutely achievable. Yep. You got to go out and study writing every day, take writing courses, write a lot, make mistakes. I just published, actually, I'll show you because my computer is sitting on it. I just published, this is the one. The Scribes Journal of Legal Writing is the leading legal writing journal in the country, if not the world. And I just published in the current edition an article called, if it were tabbed, I could find it more easily. Here it is. A letter to new and old lawyers, why you need to write well and how to do it. Oh, really? And it's got all the best secrets about how to be the best writer you can be so that you add value to your firm, you win cases, win motions, win art, win all this sort of stuff, get picked to do stuff and grow through the ranks. and make your firm money because you're adding that kind of value in a way that you can't otherwise do. You can't bring in clients and you can't expect to jump to the head of the line because your friends aren't at the point in their careers where they can give you business yet. So make your own business, grow it organically, be the best writer you can be. And I've been writing and teaching writing for 20 years, and it makes all the difference in the world. I'm looking, you can't see it. There's my writing library. It's steeped in the best writing books you can find and that are available because you need them available to yourself to be the best at your craft. You're a professional writer. Don't let anybody tell you you're not, because you are.
Fantastic advice. Be the best writer you can be. I love that. Well, Danny, I think that's about all the time that we have for today. It was a real pleasure having you as my guest and sharing all these wonderful thoughts and insights and this robust discussion about legal wellness. Now, I know we've said it a few times, but if anybody would like to contact you, can you please give us the web addresses for Your Lovable Lawyer?
Of course.
On your podcast.
It's an easy one. www.yourlovablelawyer.com. You can email me at danny@yourlovablelawyer.com and find all that information on the website. And I'd be thrilled to hear from anybody. So please enjoy the site. It's for you.
Wonderful. And I will add, if you just go to YouTube and type in Your Lovable Lawyer, you will find all of Danny's videos, the entire video collection there as well. And of course, I have to thank the audience for listening. If you'd like to hear more, please be sure to follow us. We are on Apple, we are on Spotify, we are on Stitcher, and many other outlets where you can see your favorite podcasts. If you'd like to listen to a recording of today's program, or would like to learn more about risk settlements and the litigation risk transfer solutions that are available to you and to businesses out there, you can always contact me at kevins@risksettlements.com. My direct dial is 216-570-9370. And my company website is www.risksettlements.com. Danny, thank you again. And until next time.
Thank you so much.